Good evening. Welcome to the first Downers Grove Village Council meeting of 2023. We're glad you're with us if you're in council chambers or watching at home. We start our meetings usually with the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight we've got a little help with that. There's a Cub Scout troop from Leicester School. They're going to come on up here and help us kick our meeting off. Come on up, boys. You want to stand right here? There you go, right there. Face the flag and get us going.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, boys. Good job. Rosa, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Barnett,
Here.
Commissioner Jose,
Here.
Commissioner Wallace,
Here.
Commissioner Sadowski-Fugit, here. Commissioner Colavani,
Here.
Commissioner Gilmartin,
Here.
Commissioner Glover.
Here.
You're all here for our first kickoff. That's fantastic. As we move forward this evening, I do have a couple of reminders about public comments at our meetings. Public comment portion of our meetings is an agenda item, and they're important, valued parts of each council meeting. We have provisions for the same at each active and first reading agenda item and later in the meeting for items not on the agenda. Please remember, however, it's not a debate, nor is it an open question and answer session. We're counting on everyone here to treat each other with respect and to treat this meeting with appropriate decorum. Beyond tonight's meeting, there are a variety of additional opportunities to engage the council, including our e-remarks system, the CRC system, coffee with the council, direct email, and by phone. Every one of your council members spends time in person and off this dais making themselves available to residents and businesses in our community. Those one-on-one conversations are often the most valuable. Your council is listening. We are often taking notes, considering what is said. Some time is needed to reflect on the comments presented. That same consideration is expected of everyone in the room. When you hear a comment with which you disagree, please don't react. Just take some time to reflect on another viewpoint, and rest assured your council is hearing and seriously considering all the comments made. If you do plan to speak, please keep the following in mind when you come to the podium. Please state your name for the record. Address your comments to me as the chair of the meeting. Keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Avoid repeating what others have already said. Please keep your comments to one visit to the podium per subject. And remember that comments are most effective when they focus on subjects within the scope of Downers Grove Village governance. Finally, if you forget to mention something or additional conversation brings up a new idea, please hold that until after the meeting and use one of the other contact methods, such as email or phone, to let us know what that is, or bring that comment to our next meeting. Item 3 on our agenda tonight, I have a proclamation. This concerns Martin Luther King Day, which is next Monday. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to advancing equality, social justice, and opportunity for all, while challenging all Americans to participate in reconciliation and the never-ending work of building a more perfect union. Whereas Dr. King emphasized that his dream excludes no one from its promise and protection, and it affirms that every individual's rights are God-given and neither conferred nor derived from the state. Whereas Dr. King recognized that everyone can be great because everyone can serve, requiring only grace and love to do so, and during his lifetime encouraged all Americans to serve their neighbors and their communities, remembering the urgency of now. Whereas Dr. King warned us not to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred, that dignity, discipline, and nonviolence were the way forward, that we cannot walk alone in this walk to justice, and we cannot turn our back on it. Whereas in 1994, Congress initiated the King Day of Service, a nationwide effort to transform the holiday honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. into a day of community service, focused on Dr. King's example of working to solve social problems while focusing on bringing people together and breaking down the barriers that divide us as a nation. Whereas serving on the King holiday is an appropriate way to honor Dr. King, meet local and national needs, bring our citizens together, and strengthen our community and nation. Whereas serving on the King holiday is an appropriate way to honor Dr. King, meet local and national needs, and strengthen our communities. Whereas the King Day of Service is the only federal holiday commemorated as a national day of service and offers an opportunity for Americans to give back to their communities on the holiday, as well as a time to make an ongoing commitment to service throughout the year. Whereas the King Day of Service projects are organized by a wide range of nonprofit and community organizations, educational institutions, public agencies, private businesses, and other organizations across the nation. Therefore, I, Robert T. Barnett, Mayor of the Village of Downers Grove, in honor and recognition of the contributions of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. to the advancement of equality in our country, proclaim January 16th, 2023 as Martin Luther King Day in the Village of Downers Grove, and urge our citizens to honor the memory of Dr. King, follow his example, and put his teachings into action by participating in the MLK Day of Service, and to find ways to give back to their communities through visiting serveillinois.gov, givingdupage.org, or AmeriCorps.gov, and by searching MLK Day of Service. Dated this 10th day of January 2023 at Downers Grove, Illinois. With that, we're on to item 4 on our agenda. Is there a motion concerning minutes of previous council meetings?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt the December 20th, 2022 minutes as presented.
Second.
Any comments or questions on those minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Is there a motion concerning the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move that the council adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The 2 passes unanimously. Just like that, we're on to item 6, which is our active agenda. We do not have an active agenda tonight. For those attending the meeting for the first time or watching from home, the active agenda items are those on which we plan to take action tonight. We do not have any, so we'll move on to our first reading. This is the portion of the meeting where we talk about items either for the first time or perhaps a second or third or fourth time. But these are items which we plan to discuss but not act on tonight. With that, I'll turn it over to Dave.
Thank you, Mayor Barnett. Just one item on tonight's first reading agenda. It's consideration of an ordinance related to neighborhood traffic study number 8. Here to provide the background information on this item is our Public Works Director, Andy Sigich.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Dave said, this evening I'll be presenting Neighborhood Traffic Study number 8. Since 2010, the village has looked at traffic on a neighborhood-by-neighborhood basis. This is the 8th study that we have done, logically. The study area is depicted here and more or less is bounded by 63rd Street on the north, 75th Street on the south, Main Street on the east, and Woodward Avenue on the west. To perform the study, the village hired KLOA, a traffic engineering firm located in Rosemont, Illinois. And their recommendations included adding stop signs at various locations, reducing the speed limit on the south section of Dunham Road, installing school and park zone speed limits, installing curb extensions on Norfolk at Powell, countdown pedestrian signals at signalized intersections, and some bikeway improvements as well. So KLOA started this study with an in-depth review of existing conditions, which included field investigations and observations, traffic counts and speed surveys at 48 locations, vehicle, pedestrian, and bicycle counts at 18 intersections, and a review of various data. Our goal is to have all intersections under either a traffic signal or some form of stop control. This report recommends upgrading many yield signs and uncontrolled intersections to a stop sign on at least one leg of each intersection. There are also 7 new all-way stop locations recommended. And those are where you see the red circles here. KLOA's recommendations included some speed limit changes as well. They recommend reducing the speed limit on the south section of Dunham from 30 to 25 miles per hour, adding several park zone speed limits throughout the region, and also adding a school zone on Powell between Norfolk and Palmer near the Kingsley School. This study also includes recommendations regarding some pedestrian enhancements. These include high visibility ladder style crosswalks, pedestrian crossing signage, some pavement markings, the curb extensions that I mentioned, countdown pedestrian signals at all the intersections that are signalized already. That would we would have to work with DuPage County DOT on those because all of those are their signals. And then the use of speed monitors and targeted enforcement as well. And finally, KLOA made recommendations regarding some bicycle enhancements. These include designating 71st Street as a bike route and adding Sharrows to the pavement on 71st, considering the designation of Norfolk Street between Springside and Barrett as a bike route, and installing additional bike route signs on some of the existing designated bike routes. Neighborhood Traffic Study 8 was reviewed by TAP this past November, and it received a positive recommendation for approval by the council. And with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Thanks, Andy. Any comments from the audience, comments or questions on this study?
Hi, my name is Marshall Schmidt. The one question I have is, how does the council alert the neighborhood that these changes are being considered? I mean, obviously, this is all driven by safety and it makes a lot of sense, but I know that the changes that were made, for example, on Prairie, really the first I heard of those was kind of when they were being made, and I'm wondering if there's a process in place whereby the neighborhood that's going to be impacted by this is alerted and provided an opportunity to have input.
Thanks, Marshall. There is a process. I don't want to recite it because I'll probably get it wrong, but we'll make sure we answer that question before our next meeting, get that out there to everybody. Dave, you want to?
Yeah, and Andy will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in neighborhood traffic studies like this, we actually do a mailer to every property that's in the study area. We also do the notices of the Transportation and Parking Commission as well. So I think I covered that, right? Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Rich Benema. During that November 9th discussion of the traffic study, one Transportation and Parking Commissioner asked how many stop signs would be added by the proposal. There was an audible gasp from all the residents in attendance when the Transportation Manager replied 70. This was not what they were expecting or hoping for, but the truth is even more excessive than that. The ordinance contains 118 new stop signs. 7.5 pages in the ordinance added stop signs, and this is from one neighborhood. Another commissioner expressed concern that this plan would lead to, quote, sign pollution. Another thought this could make the neighborhood station to station. While both ultimately approved the plan, I don't believe they fully grasp its severity. So in the spirit of the one dissenting commissioner who gave me hope that you might reject this plan, allow me to present a scenario of how onerous this could be to residents. I've given you handouts to kind of help you visualize it. Say you want to go from Penner Place to Downers Grove South. After exiting the driveway, you go only 79 feet before you hit your first stop sign. You turn right onto Penner Avenue, you only go another 361 feet till you get a second new stop sign at Concord Drive. You turn right, proceed 1/10 of a mile to an all-new, all-way stop at Stonewall Avenue. After turning left onto Stonewall, the speed limit has been reduced to 20 miles an hour because this has been labeled as a park zone. But this isn't a park, it's a retaining ditch. There are no sports fields, there is no playground equipment. There are 2 benches where you can sit and gaze at the big grassy ditch. Just like Marduk, which is a summer farm, not a park, and Dunham Place Park, which is surrounded by houses, this plan reduces the speed limit to 20 miles an hour on any street where the consulting firm saw green on the aerial map. Continuing 2/10 of a mile on Stonewall, you stop at Oxnard Drive. A couple years ago, the yield signs were taken out and replaced with a 2-way stop. But without any word about whether this was effective or not, now every yield sign is being turned into a stop sign, and this intersection is being turned into an all-way stop. You continue north for another 351 feet when you get to Bolson Drive. You've only gone 4/10 of a mile, but you've already hit 5 stop signs. You turn onto Bolson Drive. Bolson is where the problem is. It's a straight shot between Woodward and Dunham. At the November meeting, one resident complained drivers fly by his house at 50 miles an hour. But from here to Downers Grove South, the plan makes 0 changes. You drive straight for a full 3/10 of a mile to a stop sign at Springside Avenue that's been there forever. You turn left onto Springside and drive stop sign free for 2/10 of a mile onto Norfolk, still no stop signs. For another 423 feet, and you're in the parking lot at Downers Grove South. I ask you if this plan makes sense to you. In the problem area, there's only one stop sign in 2,640 feet. But in the non-problem area, over 6 times as many stop signs, with a stop sign on average every 422 feet. If you're at the Downers Grove South baseball field, that's approximately the distance from the backstop to the center field fence. This is what station to station is. You go 400 feet and you stop. Another 400 feet and you stop. Station to station to station to station. This plan is a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. At the November 9th meeting, the transportation manager said the purpose of the stop signs is not to reduce speed, but to establish right-of-way for insurance and to protect the pedestrians. But there's problems with that. Given the findings of the report, this stance is indefensible. Per the report, traffic volume is, quote, well within range. More importantly, crashes were considered to be, quote, not significant. There is no need to make changes this drastic for an insignificant amount of traffic and crashes. Regarding pedestrians, I've worked from home for 16 years, and I get my 10,000 daily steps walking through the neighborhood at various times on various streets. I'm often alone. Besides the beginning and end of school, there are very little pedestrians out. So as far as protecting pedestrians go, no thank you, I'm going to be fine. I ask you to reject this proposal. Instead, send it back to the Transportation and Parking Commission to create an improved plan that addresses the actual problem of outside commuter and school traffic that's speeding through our neighborhood without punishing residents with station-to-station stops at every intersection, as if our quiet neighborhood with few cars or pedestrians for 22 hours a day and almost no crashes with downtown Chicago. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Others on this subject? Okay, any council comments or questions? Leslie?
Yeah, I know that this is a large volume. Can you give us an idea of what the size of this particular traffic study is compared to what a typical traffic study size would be?
It's larger than the ones we have done, just because the area didn't really lend itself to being split up into multiple regions. It's about twice the size, I think, of the last few studies we've done, area-wise.
Okay. And then do we have any idea as a comparison, knowing that it is twice the size, is this kind of a typical, I know that we've talked in the past about how we are trying to change over most of our yield signs to stop signs. I know I've had that conversation because there are some when I go to pick my daughter up after getting off the train that are still there, or on Fairmount. But I know that's pretty typical. Is this plan in general pretty typical of the kind of the volume that you would see in an area that's kind of around a school, given the size?
It's a little hard to compare this to the other studies we've done, because this is, now we're getting into newer developed areas, which have a little bit of different road pattern and things.
Sure.
But so there are a lot of uncontrolled intersections in this area.
Okay.
And a lot of the yield signs that we mentioned. So that's kind of why you're seeing a few more stop signs.
Chris?
Yeah, I was curious as to the rationale behind designating 71st Street as well as Norfolk Street as bike lane or bike routes. Just wanted to understand what maybe was behind that decision or those decisions for the recommendation.
Off the top of my head, it's just the way they kind of fit with the rest of the network, but we can.
Okay.
I think it's part of
get
our
more
comp plan and 2013 bicycle plan, but I'll double check.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. All for it. Thank you.
Greg?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to see us go back and take a look at specifically Bolson Drive and see if there's not a way that we can, if not a stop sign or two, find another way to help slow the traffic down there. But as far as the uncontrolled intersections and the yield signs, this is something we've done in many other neighborhoods, and I think an uncontrolled intersection presents a safety hazard in my mind. Unless there's any other information on why we should keep them uncontrolled, I think it makes sense to continue with that process. Thank you, Mayor.
Rich, please.
Well, I live in this neighborhood on Camden, Concord, so I drive there all the time. My first reaction when I read this is it looks like we're trying to solve problems that aren't there. And there's not, generally my impression was there's just not that much traffic in that neighborhood. But that's anecdotal and it's based on my feelings. And then I started drilling more into the traffic study itself to see what the rationale. In some cases it make perfect sense, like Norfolk and Powell. There's a grade school there, so that made perfect sense. My estimate of 71st Street, even before I saw the speed, people go too fast on that road because it's too wide. Putting a bike path there and narrowing it down would probably be more effective. And then there were some of them, like where Springside runs into 71st, it dead ends into there, so wasn't sure what the advantage was of that particular one. And then well, maybe we're using that to slow traffic down. So I don't know. I know I'm a little bit torn because I don't want to be in the position where say it's good for thee and not me, because we've done this in other areas, particularly around North High. There was a lot of stop signs added to that. So I'm going to put me down as a big fat I don't know, and I guess I'd like this next week to be able to look at each one of these in more detail.
Any other questions or comments? Andy, it looks sort of like we designated the streets with higher traffic volume to intend to be more capable of managing volume, and then we controlled all the cross intersections. Is that generally what happened? That's kind of what it looks like.
Generally.
Yeah, which is pretty consistent with the way we've tried to manage most neighborhoods, really. Okay. All right, I don't have any other questions for tonight, but we'll be talking about this again. Anybody that's interested, please come to our next meeting. We'll kick it around some more.
And just check the website on Friday, because if we're still doing some research, it might not necessarily come back next week, but if you just go to this week's meeting, it's on our website, double check the agenda to see if this item is on it.
Thanks, Dave.
And that ends our first reading tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Dave's our manager's report tonight.
Coffee with the council this Saturday, 9 to 10 a.m. at the Downers Grove Public Library. Open to the public. Hope to see some folks there. Everybody is welcome. Keeping with our tradition, we have an update from Deputy Manager Mike Baker on our Civic Center project. Mike.
Thank you, Dave. For those who aren't familiar, the Civic Center project will primarily result in construction of a combined police station village hall located on the site just west of where we are right now. This building will also house the administrative offices of Elementary School District 58. Pleased to report that the project moves ahead on schedule and under budget. A significant amount of work was completed in the past several weeks, continuing with basement construction and foundation work. In the coming weeks, this underground concrete work will be completed, and the project will move on to steel construction. So I am happy to show you a video, the latest video, work completed in the past week that reflects the construction progress.
Mike.
Unless there's any questions, that concludes our manager's reports on there. Thank you.
Okay, item 10 on our agenda tonight are public comments. We'll get to that after I try not to skip the attorney's report, which Greg is helping me with.
Thank
That's what
you,
happens
Mayor.
when you slide your paper under your computer. Enzo, do you have
One
a
item.
report?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor, real quick. Just the ordinance amending certain traffic parking and speed provisions and pedestrian safety improvements will be on the next active agenda.
Thank you.
That is all.
Item 10 is public comments. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items not on tonight's agenda. So if there's something on your mind that we've not spoken about and not put on the agenda tonight, please come on down to the podium and let us know.
Hi, everybody. My name's Louise Kelly. I'm a Downers Grove resident. Nice video. I wanted to clap, but I felt alone, but I'm sure everybody wanted to. It was like a movie trailer. It was great. I wanted to talk about, skipping ahead to item 12, the motion for the Greenest Region Compact, which is going to come before this council. And my understanding is that some of you are going to say yes to, I hope everybody says yes to learning about it. So I think that's what's before us at number 12. And I just wanted to speak to a little bit about it. I'm not an expert, but I talked to the person who created it and on Friday, and she's willing to come here and give a presentation, which she has locked and loaded for village councils, to tell you everything, like all the benefits of joining this Greenest Region Compact. So that's on the table. So I hope everybody says yes to considering it. A very brief overview of this Greenest Region Compact is just that it's just 3 parts, and it's a part of the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, which we're already a part of. So this is just like a part of that. The first part of the compact is 49 high-level goals. It's just like itemized goals for our entire region for the environment. And then there's what we would have to do to belong to it is we print something out that's like a resolution, you say the resolution, maybe there's a gavel, I don't know, and then we belong. So there's no money that needs to, it doesn't cost anything, it's just that simple. The second part of the compact is it's a framework, so it's more of a scorecard, if you will, so we can basically kind of evaluate our own environmental commitment from this scorecard. We can see all the things that we have done and feel good about them. And then we can chart a course for what we want to accomplish alongside our neighbors. The third part of the compact is a collaborative work. I don't totally understand this part, but this is the part where they open it up to programs where there's federal dollars that go through the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, through the Greenest Region Compact to Greenest Region communities. So we would have access, if we belong to this, to federal dollars for things like Soul Smart programs, for interns who might be able to help with the added work with sustainability measures, and it's rumored that there's going to be more money after this Inflation Act that's funneled through that. So that's just one of the benefits right there is in the third part of the compact. And also, it's in the third part of the compact is also resources for towns, just basically to help us. So the compact isn't really to imprison us or make us feel bad about ourselves. It's really just to be a shining light to show the best practices and research for our specific region and give us the resources we need so that we can emerge as a more sustainable community. So I hope that you all vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on subjects not on tonight's agenda?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Mr. Fieldman. I'm Carol Richard on Budding Drive in Downers Grove. And 2 things. Listening to Louise speak, I realized that we haven't really talked about whether you see a need for environmental stewardship in our community or in the wider region or in the world for that matter. And if you would believe the federal government and you look at EPA.gov, you'll see good reasons for thinking and believing that the climate is changing and we need to do something to either adapt or both adapt and slow it down. So the Greenest Region Compact sounds like a good thing to belong to, and I hope Downers Grove would stand along with these other communities close to us. The other thing I wanted to mention was we used to have an Environmental Concerns Commission. I think this has come up before, and I would hope that the council would consider reinstating that commission as it once was, and maybe rename it to something more in line with what it would do, like suggest environmental improvements, and I would hope it would be a regular part of this council, because this is a really important issue. Thanks.
Thank you. Others, subjects not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we will continue. There is no mayor report tonight. Item 12 is council member reports. This is an opportunity for council members to report out on other groups that they're part of or goings-on in the community they want to make folks aware of. So we'll start with Danny.
No report. Thank you, Mayor.
Chris.
No report. Thank you.
Greg.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Rich.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Leslie.
Yeah, this is where I do want to bring up the Greenest Region Compact. So I did want to move to look into creating a report to see how we could be a part of the Greenest Region Compact.
Okay.
Yep.
There is a new business item, council member new business item. I hope everybody's had a chance to take a look at that. It is listed on our agenda. There's a link to it on our website if you're watching at home. I'd be surprised if anybody does not want to get additional information, but we should all weigh in and give staff some guidance on that. I'll start. I think we ought to go ahead and get the details we need to make a decision, which we don't have right now. Anyone else got any thoughts on that?
I think we need the formal motion.
Discussion. I guess we should have a motion first. All right. We're going to make us do a real motion. That's the good news is that we're all trying to work together up here, and I appreciate Leslie bringing this forward. I should have asked for an actual motion. So do you have an actual motion prepared?
Yes, I move that we investigate joining the Greenest Region Compact.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Now, is there any additional discussion or comments on that? We should all weigh in. Anyone? Chris?
Yeah, I am totally for this. I think we need to take a look at this to see how we can leverage some sort of group like this for the benefit of Downers Grove, for the benefit of our neighboring communities. I'm very interested to learn how it might work and how we might use it to apply what we're already doing. And I think as part of this report, I would assume we would get some information, or I'd like to see at least some information about what we're already doing without this distinction. But I'm all for, I think, learning about this. My gut tells me it's the right place to be. So I fully support this. Thank you.
Anyone else? Leslie, go ahead.
Yeah, so my rationale for it now, just historically in 2019 when I first joined the council, I was interested in seeing if we could do a little bit more with the sustainability and energy audit that did not pass for priority action items, but it's been something that I've been interested this whole time, so this wasn't kind of a new thing for me. We really are, it feels like starting especially to think much more about sustainability with this new building. It was really the first time that any of our plans have included extra dollars for those improvements. And we've also had several community discussions regarding new developments, downtown density, and green spaces over the last few years, as well as just the aesthetics of downtown. So knowing that these conversations are likely continuing, as well as discussing potentially complete streets, we've talked a lot about being walkable and bikeable in a lot of these conversations as well. It feels like a good opportunity and a good time to make that connection with other communities and municipalities who do have resources, who have already started this planning, so that we can really think of this in a more holistic way instead of just kind of piecemeal as these projects come up. So that was kind of why the timing to me felt good for now. And realistically, any of us, who are concerned about climate change, we all know that we can't do this on our own. The village of Downers Grove on its own is not going to solve the climate crisis, but if we can join this larger collective and have those conversations, I know we are a part of DMMC, and they have signed on to the Greenest Region Compact, but many of those meetings are, the mayors and managers are in, and attorneys are in kind of some of these conversations. But to me, I would like to see if this would also give us more opportunities to have collaboration within those who are kind of doing the work and not just kind of the managers' groups. So I would like to see a little bit more of how involved we can get, and what types of collaboration and resources and funding are out there for this. So that was kind of the rationale, to give you a little background.
Anyone else? Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea. I would certainly like the idea of studying it more. Secondly, I always like to see what other municipalities are doing, because then it's free staff work for us that our taxpayers don't have to pay for. We are supposed to be stewards of our environment, and certainly that's in the forefront. We got a lot of emails on this subject. I guess the only thing I was disconcerted about is the tone of a lot of those emails didn't really reflect all that Downers Grove has done up to this point. I'm not sure how many of those people knew that for 7 years in a row we were ranked in the greenest fleets, municipal fleets in the United States, like ranked 50 out of some huge number, perhaps 38,000. So I would say, as far as something where we would have an impact on vehicles that we use, that we have done a good job. We plant a lot of trees. We average at least 400 trees a year, and we've done that for decades. I think people need to understand that. And hopefully this report will show the report card of the things we have done, and here are the other things that we need to improve on. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Anyone else? Nicole?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I think this council has always done a really great job of doing our due diligence, which is what we owe the residents. So I feel like this is a great plan. I think there are maybe some misconceptions out there about joining this compact, so I would like to see more information that's spelled out. What are our obligations, whether it be financial or reporting, and then just some clarity on exactly what it is. To Commissioner Colavini's point, we got some emails like about recycling and some other things that I think, it was a bit unclear as to what this was. So if we could do that, and speaking to what Commissioner Gilmartin said, what we're already doing without this distinction, and just maybe a side-by-side, that would be excellent. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? I'll just add a little bit to, we have a responsibility to our community, we have a responsibility to our planet, and it's important that we evaluate this periodically. We've looked at this, we've looked at SoulSmart as another example of kind of an organizational structure a couple times over the years, and each time we've not thought it was right for us in the moment. That's not to say they're not right for us tomorrow. What's important is that we're aware of these things, we're current on them, and we're doing everything we can. Every decision we make should have some consideration of the impact that it has on the environment. I think that's been the case. It certainly has been the case. But understanding what's current around us, the region is important, but let's not discount the work that individual communities are obliged to do, whether they're part of it or not. Whether this ends up in us being part of this compact or not, it doesn't change our obligation. And I think that's an important thing for everybody up here to remember. We'll figure this out, we'll make some decision, we'll go forward or we won't. But it doesn't mean that the next decision we're making shouldn't be considered at least partially through the lens of environmental sustainability and environmental impact. So I'm all for learning more and getting current. Okay. We should have a vote on the motion. Based on everybody's comments, I'm just going to ask for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are none opposed.
Aye. Sorry, I was...
You
didn't know if
sleeping?
we had to go to-
Were you sleeping down?
No, I was wide awake, sir. I just didn't know if we needed to offer the public an opportunity to comment, but apparently not.
We,
Traditionally, I don't think we have.
yeah,
I
we
don't think so.
haven't
Councilman
traditionally
report
done
is
it.
on council, yeah.
But you know what?
New guy foul.
Yeah.
New guy foul.
Yeah, no, it's not a new guy foul. It's a new guy. Good question. Is there anybody in the audience that wanted to comment on this that did not previously? Go ahead and take a few minutes at the podium.
Yeah, Marshall Schmidt again. You know, the reality is that there's a lot more collaboration among communities in the recent economic consortium that was created to look at economic issues is a prime example of that. And I think that this proposal is something that fits very nicely into that. Climate change is something that cannot be done individually. It needs to be done collaboratively. And it's very important for the village and village government and all of the entities within the village do what they can to collaborate and create synergies among the different villages. So obviously it makes perfect sense to learn more, to make sure that the village is not making commitments that are unwise or not in the village's best interest. But I really do think that the value of collaboration needs to be a prime consideration in deciding whether you enter into this, and I think the trend is clearly in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Marianne Badkey. Yeah, I really hope you'll look into this. I think it's something, I haven't read all the details, but I do think it's important, just as the prior gentleman said, about coordinating and collaborating with other communities, and that's, I think, what this seems to be about. Because while the village does do a lot of good things environmentally, we also seem to be big on covering up all the green spaces, which many are. And so I think it's really important to also think about bringing that environmental committee back and showing maybe more of a public aspect to your environmental issues. I mean, I know like Rich said with the vehicles and whatnot, but that kind of flies under the radar as you had to bring it up, and I mean, I've heard of it before. So maybe having back that council and being involved in this is a more public way to let people know that the village is trying to be more environmentally conscious. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you all for taking the time to give us your thoughts. Chris, thanks for bringing that up. Do you have a report this evening?
No report, Mayor, thank you.
That's kind of anticlimactic.
How do you follow that?
It's tough to follow. Thanks, Leslie. All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all, and good night.